Perfect. All right. Thank you again, Rachel. Thank you for always organizing these as well. Good morning again. My name is Angel Anke Rocha, pronounced he, him, él, and I am the Associate Director for the Monarch Unity Resource Center. And today we're talking about undocumented students at SDSU, understanding and supporting our undocumented population. This is a little bit of a part two as a continuation to another presentation that I did with the CIE on Tuesday regarding policy and our responsibility as CSU employees and higher ed employees for our undocumented population, how that responses to any sort of immigration enforcement on campus. So that was a part one on Tuesday. As Rachel mentioned, the recordings will be shared soon. So if you missed that one, that's a great resource. This is a little bit of a complementation to that presentation, where that one was very policy heavy, text heavy. This is more specific to our student narratives, student experiences, and so how it is that our center has supported students when it comes to some of these challenges and narratives and situations. So that's what we'll be doing today. Starting off, just wanted to quickly mention who the team is at the Monarch Unity Resource Center. We have Cynthia Torres, director of the center, who's been here for some time at SDSU. So she is very well known, very popular, very famous. I like to tell her she's a champion for students in our center and the students that we serve. There's myself, the associate director, as mentioned, and then we also have our assistant coordinator, Ingrid Clara Ramos, who is also an absolute beast and superhero in our office as well. So then I wanted to, just before we really get started, talk a little bit about the intention for the presentation. I mentioned a little bit about how it's very student narrative driven. The idea is to put ourselves in the perspective of these students. Instead of kind of going straight into the resources, I broke it up into starting with a student narrative, the challenges that they are facing, and then pairing it up with the resource that our center provided and supported, and then also tying it into what is kind of some of the general challenges that happen to some of the students in our center and tying it to, again, this narrative. We'll end with just some updates that come to our population, that come in place to our population, and then a bit of a call to action for folks. We've had a variety of different folks that we very much appreciate coming to our center saying, how can I better support this population? So that's a little bit where the call to action comes in, and it's very much up to people to take what they would like, piecemeal it so that it's not one way to do it, but whatever way is best for them. We will be sharing some difficult situation and narratives, so just please be aware of some triggers because these are very much real student narratives and how it is that we've been able to successfully support them as well. So we'll start, for example, with Juan. This is a student that during their second year here at SDSU, their father was deported. The father was the breadwinner of the household, you could say, and they had some traditional values in their household. So through that, the requirement for this student, for Juan, to suddenly step up as the man of the house included some financial challenges. So financially sustaining the household, that included himself, his mother, and two younger siblings. But that also included his father, who was now trying to find housing in Mexico and didn't have a job, didn't have a foundation to land on. So Juan was also financially responsible for dad while in Mexico until he could land on his feet. So this student suddenly had this responsibility thrust on him to not just continue to try to be a successful student, but to financially sustain two entire households. So that is the narrative that I mentioned. And now talking about some of the resources, some of the things that we do specifically for our students, and then pairing it up to how those resources respond to Juan and his situation. So at the MURC, the Monarch Unity Resource Center, what we do, what we offer is a safe space, whether that be, of course, here in the physical space. There's a very tight-knit community that comes in and engages to our center, but also we have a variety of different students that still engage with us virtually. And these students we connect with very often to be able to continue and support them. They're very much engaged, whether it be physical or virtual. We try to be advocates. So for Juan, for example, to have this situation come in, we try to advocate for them, for him in a variety of different ways that we'll talk about in the next slide. We know that our students, they're often are first gen. So for our undocumented population, they're often first generation, don't know exactly what they don't know. I don't know what I don't know, but we've gotten a lot of skills to be able to figure it out along the way. And for our first gen students, this is a daunting space at times. And these challenges that come from home bleed into the things that they're trying to accomplish here as students. So we do our best to try to advocate for them, whether it be reflective conversations or it is utilizing a lot of the different partnerships and support that we have across this campus. Community, of course, having community here. I mentioned that we have a lot of frequent flyers that come to our office. They get to know each other a lot because it's a lot of the same faces over and over again. And a lot of the time, our students, because they know that the people that are coming in here are either allies, immigrants of some sort, or experiencing very similar challenges, there's a lot of support that kind of gets created just out of the space here. And a lot of that does come from the support that the staff try to provide for the students, and a lot of what Cynthia has instilled in all of us as the leader of the center. Some of the general resources that, again, we'll dive into a lot more as the presentation comes in, and it pairs up with more of the narratives that we'll talk about in a bit, are free legal services. So Jewish Family Services has a program called Higher Education Legal Services, and this is a team of folks that provide legal services for higher education institutions, free of charge, completely free for our students up until their 2 years after they graduate, as well as their family members, their direct family members. So those services are free for them, and this is also available to staff, faculty across the institution as well. We do offer a bit of financial support. This is in collaboration very much with ECRT, scholarships that we have available, and community organizations that we pair up with. And we also have, thanks to associated students, we have specific funds set aside to help with DACA renewals. We'll talk a little more about some of those things in a bit too. And then a network of support. I mentioned Cynthia is a boss. I am very grateful to be able to work with her. I've learned a lot from her and continue to learn from her. And with the time that she's been here, she has created a very confident network of support across this campus that pairs up with that advocacy as well. We actually recently just had a student that could not get their transcripts figured out for some reason. They're an incoming student, but for some reason, she submitted all her transcripts and something was not working out where she was not able to register and the hold was not lifted. Through that network of support, Cynthia advocated for them and was able to get a solution, get something rolling that is going to support the student now. So just one example. Another narrative within the narratives, actually. So now in the case of Juan, I mentioned the resources. Now we're pairing it up with the narrative. In the case of Juan, these are some of the things that we did to support them. So first and foremost, we connected Juan to ECRT to be able to see what are some things that can be done to mediate some of the financial hardship that was now being placed, or the financial burdens that were now being placed on Juan, to be able to make sure that he can still do his best to focus on school while still being able to emphasize all the things that he has to do at home. And yes, they were able to thankfully support in a variety of different ways. Community resources as well, just being able to learn more about what are community resources available to Juan, learning more about his situation, his needs, and be able to find those things. So groceries was a big challenge for them. So we found a food bank, a community food bank to be able to refer them to. And then of course food pantry here on campus as well. There is a network called the Rapid Response Network here in San Diego. It is, if you can Google search it, San Diego Rapid Response Network, and a phone number will be available. That is a conglomerate of different organizations and advocacy groups across campus that can help in the immediate situation. So, what does it mean to try to look for legal services in this moment where Juan's father was deported? It's not so much like, oh, let me set up this foundation that we're going to be able to get support from later. It's a rapid need, and that's what the rapid response team can support with. Um, and of course, I mentioned legal services. Um, so my mistake. Going back to the rapid response, it's where is Juan's father at the time? There are community organizations that also help to support, try to find where someone can be, um, where it is that they're being transported to, detained to, all these things. And then, of course, the legal services. The Rapid Response Network can also connect to that, but we also have JFS's Higher Education Legal Services that I mentioned before. Emotional support and community bonding with individuals that know the situation. I mentioned here on this camp and then in our office, there's a lot of folks that know the similar challenges that folks are going through. As folks feel more and more comfortable, it is not something that we ask them to do. It is something that students slowly start opening up to each other because a lot of our frequent flyers that have continued to be here and build community often share their stories with other folks. So that makes it so other folks start feeling, okay, this is a space where I can open up and share a little bit about myself. So that community building is a big part of it. And then connecting to financial aid, we have a liaison that really understands the effects of changes in financial need and what are other possibilities. That liaison is also very aware of the California Dream Act that is specific to our undocumented population. But of course, our mixed immigration status students also can have adjusted specializations when it comes to financial aid. Another narrative, we have Bedla. So this is a student that has DACA and was able to utilize it to do advanced parole. So advanced parole, we'll get into a little more of it in a bit, is an opportunity for documented students to leave the country authorized and be able to have a reentry set up for them. This can be for educational purposes, emergency purposes, business purposes, a lot of different things. So as a student, she used it. She was able to do advanced parole, safely leave the country with the promise of being able to come back. And so she was able to travel during this educational program, travel to her home country, and be able to utilize the opportunity to see family that she has not seen in 20 years. So it was a wonderful experience for her and something that she would never want to not do. Uh, but when it came to re-entering the US, she was put through 3 different inspections. At one point, authorities were even trying to convince her that there was no such thing as advanced parole and that she can't come back into the country. Thankfully, she did return safely after advocating for herself multiple times with multiple people when trying to come back in. So back to the resource and then the strategy. So if you ever hear about students that are looking into advanced parole, we want to connect with them so they can be very well informed. And because of all the experience that we have supporting students with advanced parole, we can also share some of the previous stories, successes, challenges, whatever it may be. Um, so I mentioned a little bit advanced parole. It's an opportunity to be able to leave the country and have that promise of being able to come back in. But as we heard a little bit in this situation, even though that promise was put there, multiple people tried to convince her that that wasn't the case. There is a specific process to apply to advanced parole. We can support with that. Um, as well as being able to kind of talk about some of the things, the experiences, as I mentioned. So preparing for reentry, especially hearing this story again, these narratives are very true and things that we talked about with students. We just changed the names. Um, we have that story in our back pocket that we want to share with them. Students tell us these things because they want others to be able to know the experience as well. So being able to practice and be ready for that reentry and what that looks like to advocate for themselves. Mental health while traveling is also something that we want to emphasize for them and support them with. It is stressful to leave the country documented. Although documented students do have work authorization and they are protected from deportation, they are still considered undocumented. And if they leave the country, they cannot come back into it. With advanced parole, they have that promise of reentry, but it can be stressful. For Pedla, she left the country and we kind of kept in touch because it is kind of fearful to suddenly leave and hope and expect that in a week's time, when that program was going to end, she was going to be able to come back confidently. So that stress of leaving the country when all this time she was told, if you leave, you're not going to be able to come back, takes a lot on mental health. So something that we also discuss and prepare for to build strategies and connect with folks, for example, at counseling and psychological services, to also be able to have those conversations and see what are things that can be done. And then walking them through the process of what to do. Again, we mentioned various students have done advanced parole, and they not only do they tell us these situations to share, but many have told us, hey, like if anyone else wants to do it, please, I want to connect with them. I want to share my story. I want to be able to help others be able to have a better experience. So it's not just about the stories that we have, it's about the advocates who want to keep coming back and connect with folks and be able to share their own personal experiences as well from a first-hand point of view. So some common challenges that our students face are things, for example, less access to financial opportunities. So whether it be both for Juan or Perla, um, whether it be the responsibility of sustaining a household or be able to even take on this opportunity for advanced parole, the application requires funding. The ability to step away from a job to be able to do this opportunity requires financial um, confidence, if that makes sense. So with our population, some of the challenges is traditionally, they don't have work authorization unless they're documented. So there is less access to financial opportunities in traditional ones, such as a job. Study abroad without advanced parole is not possible for our undocumented population. And as I mentioned, advanced parole is only possible if they're documented. So that's a whole nother little, ladder that isn't always accessible for all of our students. Um, Internships that require background checks are challenging for our undocumented population because they don't have a social security number attached to them. They may have other identifiers, but at the same time, that can be another way of putting a red flag on our student population, unfortunately, if they go through a background check. Financial challenges and added familial responsibilities at home. We mentioned again, it complements to the less access to financial opportunities. That sometimes makes it so that our students are trying to um, contribute. The word in Spanish is cooperar, contribute to the household finances. So it makes it so that there's so much more challenge there because they are trying to support the family. Maybe they're responsible for picking up a sibling after school. Maybe they're responsible for getting them ready for and being the one that helps with the schooling. We've had students who are kind of the in-house translators for their parents. So there are so many other things that our students are balancing. Lack of a traditional career track after higher education is also another challenge for our undocumented population. Um, for example, once our undocumented students graduate, what then? If they still don't have a pathway towards residency and a social security number, they still can't get a traditional job. So how do they use that degree? That is something that we also support our students with. And then policies. That are just not really undocu-friendly and don't have undocu-friendly language is sometimes a challenge, whether it be even in higher ed institutions. Um, Getting folks to include undocu-friendly language in syllabi and websites can sometimes be a challenge and something that folks maybe don't have in mind when they're building these documents and all the sort. It's not that there's any malicious intent. It's another population to keep in mind that does require a lot of extra adaptability, if that makes sense. So the way that again we approach some of these challenges and barriers is reducing there is reduced access to higher education because of all these different barriers, as we mentioned. The conversation of mass deportation continues to be presented in mainline media right now, and that creates a whole sense of insecurity for our students, making it so that they're less likely to want to go out, engage with a variety of different things across the city, and even less so, maybe go to higher education in general. Um, I mentioned the part one that we did, where we do talk about how it is at this campus, it will react to any sort of enforcement on this campus. And it is an attempt to try to create safety for our students. But they may not know that because the rhetoric in the media is mass deportations, mass deportations. And it's something that's targeting them, and it is targeting their families. So that sense of safety on campus may be reduced. Um, well, that'll make it so that the folks that are trying to get to campus are feeling less likely to do so. And then the students that are already here are maybe feeling a sense of safety on campus as reduced. We do have this space, we do have this center that we're very confident in how we do things, how we do try to create a sense of security and support here. However, not every single student comes into our doors who is undocumented or identifies with our population. For our mixed immigration status students, such as myself, my parents were undocumented growing up, but I am a citizen. Some of this applies to my family. So that fear of mass deportation could make it so that I'm less likely to feel comfortable in going to school if I'm leaving my family behind, and there's a bit of guilt tied to that as well. So over here, there was a notice that was sent out by the Department of Education that kind of just said, I'll read it very quickly. Although Higher Education Act prohibits the use of data for any purposes other than determining and awarding federal financial assistance, we cannot assure at this time that data submitted to the Department of Education as part of the FAFSA process will be protected. So this was language that was presented last semester that made it so that it created a bit of a domino effect for our populations to feel that not only can they not feel a sense of safety here in higher education, but trying to get financial assistance would also be a way of putting a bullseye on themselves and their family members. I mentioned mixed immigration status students. Our undocumented population can't apply for FAFSA. They apply for the California Dream Act that is specific to California and is kept secure by the state of California. But FAFSA is financial assistance that is federal. So as citizens, citizen students can apply for it, resident students can apply for it, but our mixed immigration status students, parents who are undocumented, could end up being exposed by the FAFSA to the Department of Education. That was another sense of that reduced higher education access for our population. So we are anticipating to see less undocumented students coming to higher education in general, based on all of these different challenges that have been presented. We have thankfully this summer seen a lot of students reach out to our center that are transferring in, entering in as first-time freshmen. Um, a lot more than usual because I think students are looking for the service. So in a good way, we do still see a very engaged population coming um, to higher education institutions. This is our last narrative. So this is Jessica. Jessica is a first-time freshman who was looking to get involved on campus and found a job that she was very excited for. She interviewed for it, applied for it, everything, and she was offered the job. Um, she was very excited to get the job. She was starting to fill out her hiring paperwork. And as a freshman, 18 years straight out of high school, a social security number is not something that she ever had to deal with before. So she asked her parents for that social security number. At that point, her parents told her that she actually doesn't have one. But they didn't tell her before because they didn't want to worry her. She's undocumented and just discovering this in this moment. They had hoped that her legal residency was established by the time that she started college, which was something the parents had already started, but unfortunately it did not happen as expected. So this is a freshman student coming into higher education and for the first time while here realizing she's undocumented, not knowing what that identity means, only just learning about it because of the situation, something that the parents were trying to protect her from, but in the end ended up unintentionally doing a bit of harm because now she has to suddenly learn about this identity and try to navigate this educational institution with that new information. So for Jessica's case, we want to let her know that the status doesn't mean that she can't take advantage of opportunities. She just needs to understand the impact of it and what it'll require on her journey. Some of the things that are still available for our student population is the DSIG opportunity. This is a stipend that students can get access to by volunteering hours if they qualify for Cal Grant B. So it's not a job, but it is an opportunity to gain work experience through volunteer hours with the ability to get a stipend for it. So we say it's not a job, but it is a bit of an alternative for our student population, who doesn't have work authorization. Um, it does require a little bit of reevaluation of her educational plan or any sort of career goals after graduation, of course. Um, just being able to kind of talk to her and see, are her education and post-graduation goals attainable with her status? And if not, that's okay. There are still other possibilities that we can search for and discuss with them in one-on-one conversations. And then, of course, connecting with Jewish Family Services. Maybe the parents already had some sort of attorney lined up and they were trying to get something going. But at the same time, if the student wants to look into it herself and try to better understand her situation, Jewish Family Services is available to her as a student. And it always doesn't hurt to have a second opinion as well. So it's something that we offer and encourage for our students to engage with. Uh, there, there might be pathways to citizenship that she's not aware of, that maybe attorneys are not aware of, um, depending on the experience of folks. Jewish Family Services and Higher Education Legal Services are very confident in the things that they can support with. So that was, again, narrative, resource, how we addressed it, to be able to kind of talk about just 3 examples of how we've supported students. There are so many more scenarios, so many more stories that have happened. We shared some of the general challenges that happen for our students, but many of them do require very, very particular responses to them because there is no cookie cutter solution for many of them, as there are with very few students, but with our population, there's a lot of very meticulous little things that require extra investigation. And especially these days, with all the changes that were mentioned a little bit with even FAFSA, requires us to constantly be updating ourselves as well. So a little bit of the call to action that comes to play here is for our allies and folks that are here to support us, we ask to see if they can familiarize themselves with undoc-friendly terminology, specifically attaining to their office or their program or department. It's a lot. It's a lot that we, myself and my team, are constantly trying to keep ourselves updated on. So we don't expect folks to constantly be on the same track of updating, but at the same time with their offices and departments, that can be a way of being able to focus down and avoid overflow information, but keep it just specific to their programs. Reach out or refer to us as a center. We're here to support. We're here to be a resource. We try to always keep an open door policy here in our office, well, specifically with the staff. Our office is very much accessible to anyone. Even for allies, we encourage any allies to come in and just explore the space. Sometimes folks feel like allyship needs to be something that you already earned it. It's something, if you're just interested in being an ally, that's something that's good enough and very much welcome. So we don't expect people to come in with a mastery of information. We don't have a mastery of information. We're confident in it, but it's something that we're still continuing to learn and grow in. So we encourage anyone to just come in and ask for a tour. I like to encourage that. I like to roll out the red carpet for people who've never been here before. If you've never seen this space, if you've never been here, just come into the front desk. And if I'm available, tell the front desk, hey, like Angel told me I saw he enjoyed a presentation, and he said he wanted me to come in and get a tour because I've never been here before. So use that excuse if you'd like as a way to be able to come into the space for the first time. We'll give you a tour. We got snacks, we got waters, we got cold waters, especially because we know it's a little bit of a hike to get to our office, and it's pretty warm out there. So I very much encourage folks who've never been here before, come and check it out. We very much appreciate first-time visitors. Displaying any sort of swag for our center or logos in your spaces. The monarch butterfly is a symbol of migration and a symbol that many of our undocumented students look for as a sense of safety and representation for themselves. So we have swag here. We are ordering butterfly stress balls. So they're shaped in the shape of the monarch butterfly. So we have swag that we can give out for folks, flyers, pamphlets, notebooks to be able to display our information. We even have these brand new, I kept them real handy and close to me, um, large printouts that show a little bit about what does the center offer, and then Immigrant Ally series information. So those are available for folks to be able to also pick up and display in their offices. We will be putting out more information about the Undocu Ally training. We had it in the spring, which was great. This fall, we are updating it to be able to have a little more information in response to everything that has happened in this administration and how it attains to our population. We'll be giving out more information about dates after the ad drop deadline when we're able to reserve classrooms and large spaces to have these sessions. And then in time, if folks feel comfortable, help donate to our center. A lot of the things and challenges that come to our office is students who come with financial crisis, whether it be due to family members in detainment, needing to pay for legal fees. Although we have these specific services with higher education legal services, sometimes folks are already engaged in other ones before they got to that. And have costs associated to them. We use some of our donation funds to support our students in financial need, something that we do, of course, triage as staff as well. So if folks feel comfortable doing so, we have a donate button on our office, but on our website, but any of these other avenues are also very much appreciated. So that is time. I wanted to give time at the end to be able to ask and answer any questions if anybody has anything. But follow our social media. We just recently renamed ourselves from the Undocumented Resource Center to the Monarch Unity Resource Center. So some of our handle is still updating on certain signs, but it's MURC now. And then visit us. As I mentioned, I'm happy to welcome folks who've never been here before, and again, roll out that red carpet a little bit. But thank you very much for everyone's time. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them on.
Thank you, Angel. I'm glad you went over the butterfly because I know that was something that was new that I learned about, right? Going through a previous iteration of the Ally program. I think it's beautiful too. It's great. So you plan to have an updated version, but it's still just the main Ally program, right? You don't have maybe one for individuals who've gone through the program before.
Great question. That is something we're actually exploring because, yes, there have been many people who've gone through the Undocumented training. And just last week, we've continued a conversation of what could be a part two, what could be an expansion on some of the things that we discussed in the Undocumented training. So, yes, we're trying to build on it. Because we have a lot of folks that we really appreciate are coming in and asking, what do you need? What can we do? They're well informed, but now it's what's the next step kind of thing. So we are trying to work on something, so stay tuned. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to use your QR code on my
Oh,
computer.
yeah.
I think I already follow you though. Any other questions in the room? Comments? I think I was also going to ask you about. Oh, Nathan, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, you're muted, Nathan. Good to see you again.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Thanks so much for this presentation, Angel. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Rachel, as always, for organizing these sessions. And so my question is, as I mentioned in the chat, visited last year. Thank you so much for just a wonderful welcome to the center. I learned so much about your resources, and I've told other folks in our department about it as well. So my question is just about the name change. I don't know if I didn't catch that at the very beginning, if you addressed it, but would you mind talking a little bit about why you changed the name? And I imagine it's probably given the current context, but like to hear a little more about it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you again for visiting us. It was in a good way. We had a wave of folks that came in after you too. So thank you again, and happy to welcome any other folks that haven't been here yet. Even returning visitors, you're all very much welcome to. So yes, the name change. So we used to be the Undocumented Resource Center, and we changed around April to the Monarch Unity Resource Center. Part of it is very much our administration, some of the language that folks are looking for, and the sense of safety was a concern. It is something that was even addressed by the Chancellor's office. So this was direction from the Chancellor's office to one, be cautious of our student population. Our students, some were starting to engage more virtually, which is still very much an accessible resource, but there was a concern of not feeling like the space would be safe with that name on it. So our students, even some of our student advocates, were in support of, okay, we understand. It was a little disappointing for folks, but at the same time, to be able to get more and more of our newer populations to be able to say, this is a space I feel comfortable with versus, is this a space that's going to be targeted if I go visit it? And if I'm not undocumented, going to the Undocumented Resource Center, will I be at risk? This, of course, follows part of the conversation from last on Tuesday that I mentioned, where we talked about policy. The very short version of it that has so many more details and intricacies to it is that we, as our campus, there most of our space is considered a private space. So in terms of the concern of safety here, this is a private space. These immigration agencies can't just barge in and demand, we need to see Angel. Where is Angel? There are policies, there are practices that make it so that higher ups in the institution get involved to make it so that these immigration agencies need to go through very specific steps to get access to these private spaces. That isn't always perfectly accessible information that all students are going to know. So part of the name change. Another part of it is our center has already always, if a student comes into our office asking for help, if we if we can support them, we will. Sometimes it does require referral to another space, of course, but we have served students who are asylum seekers, temporary protected status holders, um, refugees, and even sometimes international students. There are spaces for them, but some of those did not have a space for them. So now with the Monarch Unity Resource Center, we also now take on some of these populations. We serve immigrant populations. That includes, this is the tagline, if that makes sense. This is a website tagline. We serve immigrant populations, which include our undocumented population, our mixed immigration status students, asylum seekers, refugees, temporary protected status holders, allies, and others. So it also was an expansion to be able to serve various other populations that are in concern of, where do we fit in and how do we feel safe as well. So that's the short spiel. Our website also shares a little more about what we said, but thank you for that question, Nathan.
Well, thank you for that answer. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
I love to hear those stories because I do remember with a lot of the student spaces, especially, the initial undocumented center, like are students going to come
Mhm.
because of being identified or identifiable, right? And so to know that you're sought, that students are showing up, um, being able even to engage online, which is possibly less visible in some instances, right? So it's great to hear that not that it's expanded too, that other students are coming to you, and that we're creating space that didn't exist for them on campus. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions in the room? Hi, Cynthia.
Hola.
I hope you're feeling good.
I'm feeling better. Thank you. Angel's
Good.
amazing. Just coming to check on him and see how he's a superstar. I'm so lucky.
Ditto. Ditto, Cynthia. We had a whole slide dedicated to you.
Aw. I'll sign the autographs at the end for like $10 a head for the kids. For the
Right.
kids.
Donate $10 donations, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to stop